The number one priority for the Baltimore Ravens this offseason was not to provide targets for Lamar Jackson. It was not to add the offensive line or replace Yonda or anything like that. Their number one priority was to help their run defense and to help their defensive line and to get interior pass rush help. So what do the Ravens do? They go out and they try to target veterans because they know their target audience. We're a team we have Lamar Jackson, so that's attractive to any veteran free agent. Second, we're in the Super Bowl window right now, so let's get players that can perform right now, probably on cheaper contracts. And these veterans are going to take less money to play on this team because we are a Super Bowl contender. The Ravens, they're smart. They know their target audience. And Derek Wolfe certainly fits into that conversation. They go out, they trade for Calais Campbell. They tried to sign Michael Brockers. It fell through. They had their backup plan right there in Derek Wolfe. Derek Wolfe, if you're talking about a guy that, hey, Michael Brockers can't sign here, well, we're just going to sign Derek Wolfe. And I don't know if he's not better than Michael Brockers. It's very close. It's kind of, you can pick your poison in terms of these two players. In my opinion, Michael Brockers is the better run defender. In my opinion, Derek Wolfe is the better pass rusher. So kind of pick your poison between the two. I do think Derek Wolfe probably plays less snaps than a Michael Brockers would. Michael Brockers is more of like a workhorse. At least he was in LA. So you would expect him to be in Baltimore if he were to play there, which he isn't. He's back in LA. But for Derek Wolfe, I think he's less of the workhorse type, just in my opinion. I think he would be better utilized as a player that's more used in terms of pass rushing situations, but he can play the run as well. I mean, this is a good all-around defensive lineman, overall interior defensive lineman. He played 3-4 end, which is an interior defensive lineman. So Derek Wolfe, 1 year, $3 million with the Baltimore Ravens. Talk about a steal of a contract. I mean, this guy couldn't get more money on the open market. He ranked 46th last year for PFF, which is pretty good. I mean, you're talking about, okay, top 32, that's a number one defensive lineman. And then you go through 46, that's a top tier number 2. You're talking about a defensive line that's pretty much loaded now with the 3 guys they have on their defensive line. So the Ravens, that's what they've been trying to build. They've been trying, because they understand that right now in the NFL, if you can have good coverage in the back end, which the Ravens do, and you can have pass rushers from the interior to get after the quarterback, then it's on. I mean, you're good to go. It doesn't matter if you have some guys that can fulfill this scheme in Baltimore of the edge rushers, and when they do blitz, these guys are kind of versatile linebacker D-end hybrids. If you can find those Matthew Judon types that they found, he wasn't really a high draft pick or anything like that. If you could find those sort of guys and they fit your scheme perfectly on the edge, you can then spend your money or try and put your assets into finding these big, good, all-around defensive linemen that are not only good in stuffing the run, but also getting after the quarterback. And I think Derek Wolfe fulfills both of those requirements. There's a lot of teams that are still, in my opinion, overpaying for the big run-stuffing guys. Even though the Ravens were kind of like lackluster in their terms in terms of stopping the run last year. Like usually they're one of the top 5 teams in the league. Last year they kind of fell off in that regard, and they've pretty much revamped their entire defensive line. I think some of that has definitely been the case in terms of they wanted to turn over this defensive line and get a new defensive line in there because they didn't like how they played versus the Titans. They got ran all over by Derrick Henry, and that was a weakness of theirs all year. And they don't want that to be a weakness when they're the team that's setting the tone, when they're the team that wants to control the possession and control the time on the clock with their rushing attack and Lamar Jackson and Mark Ingram. So I think there's a lot of things that come into play here. Not only do they know they have to play Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, so they want that interior pass rush and the good secondary, but they also need to think about stopping the run. And in January, you need to be able to stop these big backs like Derrick Henry as well. Not saying that the Titans are one of their competitors, but you never know. Another team could come along just like the Titans who do the same thing. So looking at Derek Wolfe and his career so far, he is a Super Bowl champion with the 2015 Broncos, one of the greatest defenses I've ever seen in my life. He had 5.5 sacks that year in 12 games, which is one of his best seasons I can remember. He was also incredible Like early in his career, he was super underrated. Like the 2012 through 2014, he was really, really good. And then he kind of like broke out in 2015 and 2016, where he put up his most pass rushing stats and all of that. Last year, he actually had his most sacks ever in his career with 7 sacks. For the most part, he's been pretty consistent. I think the thing that hurt him in 2017 and 18 was the fact that they changed their defensive scheme a little bit, and he didn't necessarily fit in that scheme. He fit much better earlier in his career with the Wade Phillips type defense, and then last year with the Vic Fangio defense, as opposed to, was it Vance Joseph who was their coach, and that sort of defense. Even though they tried to play a similar style of defense, it just was different coaching, and didn't necessarily add up to his skill set. When taking a look at the last 2 years in terms of some advanced statistics, he's had 18 pressures last year, which is up from just 10 pressures in 2018. Like I said, he had 7 sacks compared to just 1.5, and he only played 12 games last year, so he had 7 sacks in 12 games. He was a monster in that stretch. Throughout his career, he's not been the workhorse that Michael Brockers has been, as I brought up earlier, but he's played quite a few snaps. For a defensive lineman, 50% in 12 games, pretty solid. That's probably more near like a 60-70% number, which has been the case throughout his career. For the most part, playing 66% in 2018, 67% in 2014, 84% in his rookie year in 2012. So for the most part, you're going to see him play like 60 to 70% of snaps when he's on the field. So that's good. That's solid for a defensive lineman, and that's what you want to be able to count on. He's just a really capable all-around defensive lineman that I think Ravens fans are going to love. He fits the toughness of the Ravens defense. He fits what they want to do, and he fits the scheme perfectly. And he just has that, like, he fits what a Ravens player is. Like, to me, when I think of these defenses and I think of, the Terrell Suggs and the Ray Lewis and the Ed Reed and the Nata and all these guys back like in the 2000s and 2010s, early 2010s, to me, like Calais Campbell, Derek Wolfe, these guys are what the Ravens defensively are all about. They're tough, they're big mother, if you know what I mean, and they are not going to take any crap. So to me, Derek Wolfe's an excellent signing, especially for the money, 1 year, $3 million, and he's a player that instantly gives them an impact defensive lineman. And if you were talking about somebody to replace Michael Brockers off the street, this is about as good as it gets. It's pretty much a 1-for-1 swap. So Derek Wolfe signs a 1-year contract with the Baltimore Ravens.